My life fell apart on a Tuesday afternoon while the rain was turning a Brooklyn sidewalk into a river of gray reflections. And I didn't even know it. I just saw a man sitting under a cafe awning, his back against the locked door. The rain was coming down in sheets, and he was just still. He wasn't huddled. He wasn't begging. He was watching the water run in the gutter, his eyes calm and clear. The kind of eyes you don't expect to find here, in the space between shadows and shelter. I had just left another dinner with my parents, another silent, perfect meal where the only thing served was disappointment. "You're 27, Emma. People are asking questions." My father's voice was still a cold echo in my head. "Find someone. At least show us you're normal." Normal. As if love was a checkbox. As if a husband was just another accessory, like the diamond bracelet I never took off. I was so tired of the performance. I wanted the noise to stop. I wanted the questions to end. So when I saw him, the idea didn't feel crazy. It felt like a transaction, a simple, clean solution. I pulled my car over. The rain soaked my designer coat in seconds as I walked toward him. I opened my wallet, took out all the cash I had, $500 bills, and held it out. My voice was steady, businesslike, the voice I used to negotiate contracts. "I'll pay you," I said, the rain dripping from my hair, "if you pretend to be my boyfriend for a few days." He looked up at me, really looked. He didn't glance at the money first. He looked at my face, and in his eyes I saw no judgment, no surprise, just a quiet, weary understanding. Then he looked at the cash. He reached out, and for a second, I thought it was done. Another deal sealed. But his fingers just gently pushed my hand back. "I don't sell myself," he said. His voice was low, rough like stones in a stream, but it wasn't unkind. I stood there, frozen. The money felt stupid and wet in my hand. No one had ever said no to me, not like that, not with such quiet dignity. He watched my confusion, and after a long pause he added, "But if you just need company, I can walk with you, for free." That sentence, it did something to me. It cracked the pristine surface of my world. He wasn't rejecting the offer. He was rejecting the premise, the whole foundation of my life, that everything has a price. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I understood. I pushed. "At least let me get you out of the rain," I said, my voice losing its edge. "A hot meal, a change of clothes." He studied me again. Then he nodded, not at the offer, but at something else. "All right." His name was Noah. I learned that in the quiet of a diner booth, steam rising from 2 cups of black coffee between us. He was careful with the menu, ordering the cheapest thing. He was careful with his words. He thanked the waitress by name, reading it off her tag. "Thank you, Marie." Small things. Things I'd never noticed anyone doing. I took him to a store, bought him jeans, a simple sweater, a warm jacket. He stood stiffly in the changing room, emerging looking like any other guy in the city, except for the eyes. They still held that unsettling calm. "You don't have to do this," he said, his hand on the sweater fabric. "I want to," I replied, and for the first time, it wasn't a lie. I was unsettled, intrigued. He was a puzzle I couldn't solve with money. I rented a small temporary apartment for him in Brooklyn, a week-long lease. "Consider it part of the arrangement," I told him, falling back on the business terms. He just nodded, his gratitude silent but profound. He hung his 2 shirts in the empty closet with a care that felt like a ritual. The first dinner with my parents was a performance I'd directed 100 times in my head. I coached him on the basics, my father's golf handicap, my mother's charity board. the winery they loved in Napa. I braced for awkwardness, for the cracks in the facade to show immediately. But Noah, he didn't perform. He listened. He asked my father a real question about the stress of mergers, not as a suck-up, but with genuine curiosity. He complimented my mother's artwork in the hall, not the expensive piece, but a small, faded sketch she'd done years ago that everyone else ignored. He spoke in his own voice, with his slight, unplaceable accent, not of geography, but of a life lived differently. My parents were disarmed. They were used to slick finance guys from old families or starving artists trying to impress them. They didn't know what to make of a man who was simply, unshakably present. "He's refreshing, Emma," my mother said later, a puzzled frown on her perfectly Botoxed brow. I should have been thrilled. The plan was working, but I was terrified, because he wasn't acting. The real shift happened in the late, quiet hours. After the dinners, I'd find myself driving back to Brooklyn, not to my penthouse overlooking Central Park, but to that little temporary apartment. We'd sit on the floor because there was no furniture yet, the city lights painting patterns on the bare walls. He talked about his mother, how she'd worked 2 jobs until her heart just gave out one evening in a grocery store aisle, how the system swallowed them after that. He talked about the choices that followed, the easy, dark paths offered to a young man with no family and less money, how he chose the harder thing every single time, sleeping in a library stairwell to stay warm instead of running with a crew that dealt in quick, violent cash, returning a lost wallet with a month's rent in it. "You just decide," he said, his voice a soft rumble in the dark. "What kind of ghost you want to be. The kind that haunts, or the kind that just lets go." I had nothing to offer in return. My stories were of boarding schools and summer homes, of shopping trips and social scandals. They felt hollow and childish. I had lived a life of abundance, and yet I was emotionally bankrupt. One night, I just broke. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "You know this was supposed to be fake," I whispered, the admission hanging in the space between us. He turned his head. The streetlight from the window caught the side of his face, and he smiled. It was the softest, saddest, most understanding smile I had ever seen. "I know," he said quietly, "but feelings don't ask permission, Emma." My heart stopped. Just stopped. In that moment, I knew I was in terrible, beautiful trouble. This wasn't a contract. This wasn't a deal. This was a door swinging open inside a room I didn't even know existed in my soul. I started seeing my world through his eyes. The frantic, desperate chase for more status, more things, more approval. It all looked so ludicrous, so exhausting. With Noah, there was a silence, a peace. My heartbeat, usually a frantic bird against my ribs, would just calm down when I was with him. For the first time, I felt safe. Not safe because of walls and money, but safe because I was seen, truly seen. I fell in love with him on a Wednesday morning in a sunlit bodega, watching him buy a single apple and having a full, laughing conversation with the old man behind the counter in broken Spanish. He was so alive in his simple humanity. I was a ghost in my gilded cage. And of course, it couldn't last. My father had people. It was one of his casual, chilling phrases. "I'll have my people look into it." He had Noah looked into. The confrontation happened in my father's study, all dark wood and cold ambition. My mother sat stiffly, a crystal glass of sherry untouched in her hand. "A homeless man, Emma?" My father's voice was dangerously quiet. "You brought a homeless man into our home, passed him off as a man," I finished, my own voice surprisingly steady. "He is a man. That's all you need to know. It ends tonight." my father said, slicing the air with his hand. "You will never see him again. You will come to the Hamilton Charity Gala next weekend, and you will be seen with Andrew Briggs. His family owns half of Boston. This experiment is over." I looked at their faces. My mother's pained embarrassment, my father's icy fury. This was the kingdom I was supposed to inherit. This was the approval I'd spent my life craving. And for the first time, it meant nothing. The realization was a physical warmth in my chest. It was the easiest, hardest decision I'd ever made. "No," I said. The word was so simple, so final. My father's eyes widened. He hadn't heard that word from me since I was a child. "If you walk out that door for him," he hissed, "you walk out of this family. You understand? Not a cent, nothing. You will be nobody." I looked at the portrait of my grandfather hanging over the fireplace, a man who built an empire on cold deals. I thought of Noah, who owned nothing but his own soul. "I understand," I said softly. I didn't take a coat. I didn't take my purse. I just turned and walked out of the penthouse, the elevator doors closing on my old life forever. My heart was a drum of pure, terrifying freedom as I ran down the Brooklyn street toward his apartment. The rain was back, a light mist, and I was laughing and crying at the same time. I had chosen him. I had chosen love. I would live simply. We would figure it out. The relief was so enormous it was like breathing for the first time. I reached his building. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my hands skimming the railing. The door to the apartment was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, my smile already forming, the words, "I chose you," on my lips. The room was empty. The few things I'd bought him were folded neatly on the floor. The sweater, the jeans, the key to the apartment sat on top of the pile, and he was gone. My breath left my body in a rush. The silence in the room was deafening, a physical weight. Then I saw it, a single piece of paper, torn from a notebook on the windowsill, weighted down by a smooth gray stone from the street. I walked over, my legs numb. I picked it up. His handwriting was clear, blocky. "Emma, I heard what happened. Your father's lawyer found me. He made the stakes clear. I don't want to be the reason you lose your family. I don't want to be another price you pay. You gave me a week of peace. That's a gift I can never repay. Thank you." Noah. The paper slipped from my fingers. I sank to the bare floor, the cold wood biting through my dress. He was gone. He had walked away to save me from my choice. He loved me enough to let me go. And the cruelest part? He was still refusing to be bought, even with my sacrifice, even with my heart. I wrapped my arms around myself, rocking slightly in the empty space. The ghost of his presence was everywhere. In the clean floor, in the light from the window, in the crushing, beautiful silence. My voice was a shattered whisper in the empty room. "You didn't take my money," I said to the ghosts. "Don't take my heart too." But he already had, and he was gone. I lived in that empty apartment for 3 days. I didn't call my parents. I didn't go back for my things. I just stayed, as if waiting in the place where he last was would make him reappear. I slept on the floor where we'd had our conversations. I watched the same patch of sunlight travel across the floorboards each morning, feeling its warmth fade each evening. I was a ghost, haunting the space where I'd briefly been alive. On the 4th morning, the money ran out. The week's lease was up. The landlord, a kind-eyed older woman named Mrs. Gable, knocked on the door. "Honey," she said, taking in my rumpled clothes and hollow look, "you can't stay here." I just nodded. I had no fight left. I gathered my one small bag, the one I'd never gone back to the penthouse to unpack, and I walked out. I was now officially what my father had threatened. Nobody. No credit cards that worked, no bank account I could access. Just the cash that had been in my wallet that first night in the rain, now down to a few wrinkled bills. I checked into the cheapest motel I could find, a place off the BQE with buzzing neon and thin walls. The reality of my choice landed on my chest like a physical weight. This wasn't a romantic fantasy. This was the smell of stale smoke and the sound of strangers arguing through the wall. I needed a job. My degree in art history from an Ivy League school was useless here. My experience was sitting on charity boards. I walked into a small independent bookstore in Cobble Hill, the kind of place Noah would have liked. The owner, a woman with glasses on a chain and ink-stained fingers, listened to my desperate, awkward pitch. "You know how to use a computer? Can you be kind to old ladies looking for romance novels?" she asked, her voice dry. "Yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You start tomorrow. Minimum wage. Don't be late." It was the most beautiful sentence I'd ever heard. My life shrank into a small, simple routine. Work, the tiny room, a diet of diner coffee and grocery store rice. I learned the weight of $1, the precious value of an hour. My hands, which had only ever held manicured pens and champagne flutes, grew dry from handling books and dusting shelves. I was exhausted and hungry and more alone than I'd ever been. And yet, there was a strange, clean pain to it all. When I lay awake at night, listening to the highway, I wasn't thinking about social calendars or what to wear. I was thinking about Noah's face in the diner light, the way he held a door open for someone without thinking, the sound of his quiet laugh. My longing for him was a constant ache, but it was pure. It wasn't mixed up with what he could give me or what he represented. I missed him, his soul, his quiet strength. I loved him more from a distance than I'd ever loved anything up close. Weeks bled into a month. I heard through the brittle grapevine of old friends that my parents were telling people I was traveling, finding myself. The narrative was being controlled, as always. It didn't hurt anymore. Their world felt like a story I'd read once, about characters I never really knew. One cold afternoon, as I was shelving travel guides, a familiar book caught my eye. The Poems of Mary Oliver. Noah had quoted a line from her once, that last night. "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" My throat tightened. On an impulse I couldn't explain, I bought it with my employee discount. That night, in my motel room, I found the poem. And tucked into the page, like a secret, was a slip of receipt paper from a coffee shop. It was months old, faded. A scribbled phone number, not Noah's. It was for a community shelter in Red Hook, a place that offered day labor. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was nothing. It was a stupid, fragile coincidence. But it was a thread. The next day was my day off. I took 2 buses and a long walk to an industrial part of Brooklyn I'd never seen. The shelter was in a converted warehouse, buzzing with a quiet, tired energy. I stood outside, my courage failing. What was I doing? He wouldn't be here. This was a fool's errand. An older man with a weathered face was smoking by the door. "Help you, miss?" he asked. I'm looking for someone. His name is Noah." The man's eyes softened with recognition, and my knees went weak. "Noah? Yeah. Good guy. Quiet. He's not here, though. Got a steady gig a few weeks back. Demolition crew over in Gowanus, the old ink factory site." He gave me directions. My hands were trembling. I found the site behind a chain-link fence, a hulking brick building being taken apart piece by piece. The air smelled of dust and old industry. I stood at the fence, scanning the men in hard hats and work boots, their faces streaked with grime. And then I saw him. He was carrying a length of heavy pipe on his shoulder, muscles corded with the strain. His face was set in concentration, older somehow, but his eyes, they were the same calm, deep pools. He turned, lowering the pipe into a dumpster, and wiped his brow with his arm. His gaze swept across the yard and stopped, dead, on me. Time stopped. The noise of machinery faded to a distant hum. The whole world narrowed to the 30 feet of dusty ground between us. I saw the shock hit him, then a flood of pain, of longing, of fear. It all passed over his features like clouds over the sun. He just stared, as if I were a mirage. I didn't move. I couldn't. He took off his hard hat slowly and placed it on a stack of pallets. Then he started walking toward me. Each step kicked up a little puff of dust. He came to the fence, close enough that I could see the new lines around his eyes, the fine gray powder in his dark hair. We stood there, separated by chain link, just looking at each other. The silence was full of everything we'd lost. "You're not supposed to be here," he finally said, his voice even rougher than I remembered. "I know," I whispered. "Your family." I walked away, for good. The words were simple. They were my truth. He closed his eyes for a second, a deep pain etching his face. "Emma, you shouldn't have. It was my choice. The first real one I ever made." He looked at my hands, resting on the cold metal of the fence. They were no longer perfectly manicured. They had small cuts, dry skin. I saw him notice. I saw him understand. "You're working," he said, not a question. "At a bookstore." A faint, real smile touched my lips. "I'm terrible at it, but I'm learning." A flicker of something like pride, like awe, passed through his eyes. He reached a hand up, slowly, and his fingers, calloused and stained, brushed against mine where they gripped the fence. The touch was electric. A current of pure feeling shot through me, so strong it stole my breath. "I thought I was saving you," he said, his voice raw. "Letting you go. I thought it was the right thing." "You were wrong," I said, tears finally spilling over. They left clean tracks through the city dust on my cheeks. "The right thing is right here. It's you. It's always been you." He let out a shuddering breath. He looked down at the ground, then back up at me, and in his eyes I saw the walls finally, completely crumble. I saw the love he'd been holding back. It was vast. It was endless. It was the most real thing I had ever seen. "I have nothing to give you," he whispered, the confession aching between us. I smiled through my tears. It was the first full, real smile I'd felt in months. It reached my eyes. It lit me up from the inside. "You have everything," I said. "You have the only thing that matters." He unlocked the gate. The metal screeched as he pushed it open just enough. He didn't pull me into some dramatic, cinematic kiss. He just stepped through and stood before me, close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off him, smell the scent of hard work and honest sweat. He cupped my face in his rough, beautiful hands, his thumbs wiping my tears. He looked into my soul. "Okay," he said. Just one word. A surrender. A beginning. And then he kissed me. It wasn't like any kiss I'd ever known. It wasn't practiced or performative. It was a homecoming. It was a promise. It tasted of dust and hope and a future we would build with our own hands. I felt his love not as an idea, but as a truth, solid and unshakable as the earth beneath our feet. We built a small life. It wasn't easy. It was rent checks and budgeting, frozen pizzas and saving for a secondhand couch. It was blisters and doubts and quiet nights of exhaustion. We lived in a one-bedroom walk-up with noisy radiators and a window that looked out onto a fire escape. We filled it with books from my store, and stones he found on job sites, and a single framed photo of his mother. but it was ours. No contracts, no pretending, no price, just love. The kind that shows up, the kind that makes you coffee when you're tired, the kind that holds you in the middle of the night when the world feels too heavy, the kind that celebrates a small promotion or the first tomato from a plant on the windowsill. My parents never called. The inheritance papers never came. And one day, I realized I didn't care. I had a different kind of wealth now. It was in the way Noah's eyes still found mine across a crowded room. It was in the peace that lived in my chest, a quiet hum of contentment that no stock market could ever provide. 5 years later, on a crisp autumn day, we walked through Prospect Park. Our son, a curly-haired toddler named Leo, was balanced on Noah's shoulders, giggling as he reached for falling leaves. Noah's construction company, a small, honest crew of 3, had just landed its biggest contract. I was managing 2 bookstores. We were talking about maybe buying a place, a little row house with a yard. Noah stopped walking and took Leo down, setting him on the grass to chase a squirrel. Then he turned to me. The afternoon sun caught the silver just starting at his temples. He reached into his pocket, not for a ring box, but for a smooth gray stone, the same one from the windowsill all those years ago. He'd kept it. He placed it in my palm and closed my fingers over it. His hands were still rough, still strong. "I still have nothing to sell you, Emma Carter," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I have everything to give, my whole life, every day of it. Will you marry me? For real this time?" I looked at our son laughing in the grass. I looked at this man, my shelter, my peace, my heart. I felt the solid weight of the stone in my hand. It wasn't a diamond. It was better. It was a promise that had already been kept every single day since we chose each other. I leaned forward and kissed him, slow and deep, pouring a lifetime of yes into it. "I already did," I whispered against his lips. And it was true. We'd been married in every way that counted from the moment he'd pushed my money away in the rain, choosing to walk with me for free. From the moment I walked away from a gilded cage and into an honest, messy, beautiful life. We built it ourselves. No scripts, no acting, just us. And it was more than enough.